everyone, Brad Johnson here, and so I just finished doing another channeled writing with Adronis, as we're going to be talking about the discussion of the inner earth, and more about its history and the type of beings that are there, and a lot more. So I'm just going to go ahead and share the writing that was brought forward through the channeled information of Adronis, and we'll begin. So I wrote, I ask Adronis to share as much insight as it can be shared regarding the interior of the Earth, as in its geometry, its occupants, perhaps some of its history, as it relates to the inhabiting of the inner Earth. What can be shared regarding this topic? Thank you. Adronis replies, We acknowledge your query. We will state that your inner Earth is not that of what you would term as a hollow sphere. Such a geometry does not exist naturally within your planetary bodies through this solar system. The idea is that your Earth sphere is comprised of sophisticated geometry that is hexagonal in nature, similar to what you would understand as clusters of honeycombs. These clusters are the foundational blueprint as it relates to the construct of this planet. The hexagonal geometry would form as types of pillars, as it were, to create overall stability of the planetary design. In fact, you will find through deeper science ahead, all of the planets within your star system, as well as within many other star systems, containing natural planetary spheres, utilize this pattern in the form of its own geometrical integrity. Your world was designed this way, as have many others, as this is the base geometry that is both simple and complex in the orientation of the planet's overall frame-set creation. The occupying of the inner Earth has occurred since the beginning of second density life upon the Earth, well within the millions of years previous approximately. Flora and fauna become established from within the central hub or living network existing within your planet Earth that therefore spawns surface life as it relates to the nature flora and fauna found upon the surface of your world. All life is managed, administrated, and authorized from within the inner planes of your planet, and then delivered through your planetary system through apertures, most commonly the apertures that you would find within your northern and southern poles. The idea of life that exists in more land or terrain function can also be introduced to your world through cavern systems or tubes, again spawning appropriate life. Others can be delivered through biologically adapted means through visitation with what can be known as arc craft. These arc craft would represent the geometry as a sphere and present encoded biologically created forms of life to the surface in appropriately administered climatic zones upon your planet. All life upon your planet from its original intention has been geometrically arranged to survive in such areas that are differentiated in climatic regions with thought intent. These are not random occurrences or left by chance, as this would cause failure in the sparking of life in appropriate densities, shall we say. As it relates to civilizations existing within your internal sphere, this range of life is vast. Beings that you could understand occupy much of the regions of your surface also inhabit the internal areas of your planet, only being that some of these species are aligned in sentient third, fourth, fifth density form, what you would know as bipedal species or other species that bear certain resemblance to the humanoid form. These species began with what you would know as the insectoid races. They were very much the ones that assisted in developing sophisticated tunneling routes through your planet that allowed passage and internal terraforming of the Earth. Therefore, there are certain geometric structures and hollowing out of vaults that others on your world have discovered, which represent the effects of something resembling insect-like tunneling or terraforming, structure that appear hive-like or colony-like in its overall design. Much to the beginning times of your world and its artificial terraforming began with the insectoid and indigenous reptilian races. This eventually led to further population that developed into dinosaur humanoid presence, avian presence, aquatic or fish-like presence, mammaloid or Sasquatch humanoid presence, Many of the species that we have named exist naturally within your Earth through a course of millions of years, far before the introduction of the human race. Some of these races interact with each other peacefully and share in specific forms of trade. Others would be considered as xenophobic and would not be interested in interacting with other internal races. There have been, through the course of hundreds of thousands of years, certain internal civil wars that have been waged within your internal areas of the planet as a means of acquiring further territory and even the seizing of specific biological and technological aspects to further a civilization's growth. This is not so much the case as it relates to your present day, as further accords have been established symbolizing a form of overall truce, yet boundaries have been erected similar to your national borders that have been erected throughout your own human population and countries. You could say that there may actually be territories within your own inner Earth that could be seen as countries also. Those that have formed significant alliances with other inner species have allowed certain embassies and negotiation domiciles to be created within certain cities. Though the idea of highly political identification agendas, similar to your passports or customs, is not in use within your inner planes. Such alliances can be forged, such as humanoid races allying with other human races, insectoid races, and even certain reptilian races. But it would be appropriate to say that many races have their own agendas and specifics based upon the prosperity of group races within their own civilization or generalized agendas that are mutually agreed and adhered to through that civilization. There have only been a few certain occasions throughout the course of your history where humans from the surface were permitted to visit some of the inhabited dwellings of certain internal civilizations within your world. These internal civilizations functioned through a quid pro quo stature in order for negotiations to permit surface human entry into specific areas of established dwellings with certain inner civilizations. We would also state that there are dwellings that exist within your own inner Earth that are occupied in different dimensional constructs, inhabiting elemental races that contain cities of light. These could be defined as vast illuminated crystalline structures that exist within the deeper regions of the interior of your planet, as well as existing within the atmosphere, where human senses as well as human applied technology cannot detect. These beings would be more appropriately named as the Game Masters, and are the overseers to the overall experiment and happenings existing upon this world. In fact, many of the inner Earth beings may or may not be aware of the existence of these beings. Some even dismiss them as falsehoods, and some are aware of such beings and may be seen as deities of the earth. It may be possible during your upcoming times to visit an internal civilization, should an agreement or accord be reached where mutual collaboration is accepting such premise. In the meantime, certain discussions are being made between representatives of your race that contain certain governmental status, where there is an agreement looking to be reached between exposing many of the internal civilizations with the human race upon the surface. It is important to know that this discussion is still ongoing. The closest approximation for the truce between the internal civilizations and the human civilizations are being made through telepathic or channeled exchange with specific beings upon your world that may receive certain information regarding the inner earth beings and their ways of life. This will continue to progress for a certain amount of time until a mutual agreement has been made regarding the further disclosure and invitation to the inner earth civilization dwellings. This will be the sufficient amount of information disclosed for this time. We thank you for this interaction, and we will now conclude. We will speak to you again, as now is forever, and all is one. Okay, so that is a lot of information about the inner earth. So I will again look into eventually getting back into more of the inner earth discussion, as there's no doubt a lot to talk about here. But again, some really powerful information shared through Adronis relating to the inner earth and a lot of its aspects. So again, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you again in another perspective of the now. Take care. Namaste.